Hey, it's Hutch from Hutch I Perf. It's prime time. So I finally found a use for those 87 valve covers with not enough bolt holes. This is perfect. Anyway, we're gonna pop these bad boys on, and hopefully this helps to control the oil that's going to try to run out of my engine that I don't want to. So the last thing you want to do is spend all this money on an engine and then not use the proper oil to break it in. So that's why I'm using the Driven oil. I think this is a Joe Gibbs owned company. I'm not sponsored by them. It's just after doing some research, it seemed like the best thing to use. This is BR30. It's a 5W30, which I think is going to work well for me in my application. And like I said, not sponsored. I'd like to be sponsored. Gibbs, you out there? Give me a call. My phone is ready for you. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put in 5 quarts. Make sure the oil pan drain plug doesn't leak, which would be my luck. And then I'm going to check the dipstick because I've been a little worried that that dipstick is not going to read. So anyway, let's start on this side and bathe the lifters as this stuff goes in. Four more. There's 5 quarts. It is, without a doubt, cold. We're going through a cold snap. So oil went out pretty good. I've had the heater on for a little bit in here, but it's still cold. So I'm going to let this sit for a little bit and drain down to the pan. Once all 5 quarts are relatively down in the pan, what I want to do is check the dipstick and see if I actually have a reading. I'm kind of wondering whether the dipstick's ever going to read it, because I had to like bend, if you remember, I had to bend the tube around just to get the thing to work. So let's see what happens. All right, I think most of that 5 quarts is in the pan, so let's see what we got as far as, okay, well, I've actually got oil on the dipstick, which is good. So let's put this bad boy back in and see what we got. Okay, so this dipstick, I don't know if you can see that or not. Bring that up there. I don't know if you can see. Anyway, I'm not sure if I can make that clear enough for you or not, but it's the level on it is way past the full mark, but that doesn't matter because what I'm gonna do is I'm going to remark it. So let me grab something here. All right, I'm going to see if I can take my scribe. I'm just going to put a line across this real quick. Just enough to highlight where it's at when I wipe the oil off. And then I'm going to try to run a file across that and create a little line. Grab the file and I just ran a line across that. There. So that is going to be lowest point as far as oil fill. So that's going to be add oil. That's going to be my spot. And the reason I figured that as the add oil spot is that I haven't primed the engine. So you're talking, there's 5 quarts in here. If I had 6 quarts in and the thing was primed, oil filter would be full and there would be oil through all the passages, and more than likely this would show, I think, closer to what 6 quarts would be primed. So that's going to be my add, and then now I'm going to put the other 2 quarts in. I'm going to prime the engine and then let it sit for a little bit, and then whatever shows up is going to be my second mark, which will be full. So, yeah. All right, let me put this back in. Keep it safe and out of the way. And then we will, this thing is tricky, and then we'll get to priming this thing. All right, so let's go ahead and get this done. This is an oil primer that actually fits on an F-word engine, 351 Windsor to 460. The puck doesn't quite sit down in the distributor hole the way it should, but it is close enough for what we're doing, and it does fit the shaft, and that is the most important part. I tell you what, it's almost, but it just won't. There must be something that can be done. Let me see. Never throw away a bolt or screw or fitting or sensor or O-ring. Maybe I keep too much, but this, I always, every toolbox I've had when I worked in the field and at home, I always have a junk drawer that every loose screw, bolt, or whatever, I just toss it in. So I don't even categorize it or anything. It's just in here. So it's probably a horrible system because I end up just rooting through trying to find what I'm looking for, and I should probably categorize this stuff, but I don't, and there it is. So I'm going to find something that can't fit that puck. Got it. All right, so what are we doing? All right, let's stick that in there like that. All right, let's see. I found some random nut that should fit this side. So I'm gonna. All right. Let's see if we can't do a little file and fit. Yeah, that's better. Let's see how she fits after a couple of test fits. Ha! Like a glove. All right, so you also have to remember oil pump shaft on Oldsmobile counterclockwise. It's how it spins. And I'm going to start off slow because I want to make sure that my pressure gauge doesn't leak, because I've never used one of those manual gauges before. I've always had electric. So I'm going to start off a little slow here. Yeah, I'm hearing the oil filter cycle with oil. There we go. I'm starting to get a little bit of back pressure here. Yeah, I can hear it. All right, I'll let that sit for a little bit. I'm starting to see some oil coming up. I'm hoping these valve covers are tall enough. Yeah, I got a little bit here and there. Like I said, I hope these valve covers are tall enough that when the oil runs over, it doesn't run out. All right, let's keep going. All right, we're getting good flow. Now, here's something that I think some people may get confused on when you're priming an engine. You look at it and you're like, oh, got oil, 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 oil. Everything's good, everything's good. Oh, wait, this one here doesn't have any oil in it. What's going on? How come that doesn't have any oil in it? Daggone it, I got a bad lifter. It's not always the case. So what happens sometimes is the oil feed hole that is down in the lifter bore, sometimes you can have the lifter just positioned the very right spot where it's not quite getting oil transfer. So sometimes when you're priming the engine like this, what you do is you prime and prime until you start seeing oil on the top end. Once you start seeing oil coming out, if you identify like one that's not getting oil up through the push rod, don't freak out. Take the engine, rotate it like 90 degrees, prime it some more. If you don't see anything, rotate it another 90, prime it some more. Once you go through a 180, if you don't see oil then, okay, well, if it's not getting oil, you got to investigate what it is. But let the cam cycle through one full rotation off the lobe and back just to put that lifter in a different position. A lot of times what it'll do is it'll fix your problem without you having to freak out or think there's something wrong. So I must be sitting in a good spot or doing something right, because I have got oil flowing in every single one. And I've got when I put this thing together, I took a drill and I opened up the drain holes on it wider, because Oldsmobiles have a heck of a time when it comes to oil drain back issues. So trying to avoid any issues. Looks like it's running down through that trough at the bottom and into the drain hole of the head. That looks fine. I'm going to run it a little bit more here. Let's see, now that this thing is jumping with oil in it, it makes it a little hard to hold it, but let's see if I can't position this down. So we're getting about, I would say about 90 PSI, which I think for this is perfect. Let me get it somewhere where there's no glare on it. How about that? There we go. Well, I think actually while I got it, I'm going to rotate through all 4 cycles and just let this thing move and chug. Make sure that we don't have any spots on the lifters where it's not lined up with the oil hole, just to make sure. I mean, it looks like from what I see, I got oil everywhere. I'm good, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this spot anyway. So let's see if I can hold the torque of this thing and do this at the same time. I don't know if you saw it. I just, for the spark plug holes, I just a piece of heater hose that I just jammed some tape into to plug it up. And I had them just, also I used them when I was painting. And while I was cranking it over, you saw those things going boop. It's popping out the side. It's funny. That's 7 quarts, primed, top end, flowed down, let it sit for a little bit. Some of the oil can run back to the pan. I think we're in good shape now. So now let's check and see where our oil level is. Oh, that's not bad. It's right, if you can see that or not. Don't know if you can see that, but it is right at that U in use oil. So I am going to put my second scribe mark right at the U, and that will show me full. So there are my two marks. Got my full, and I've got add, and I've even got some bootleg looking crosshatch in between. So that is full and fill. Quick check of the front seal. Well, that looks good. Drain plug is dry. And let's see, we can't get... Back of the engine is dry. Okay, here's where we go into full disclosure. So when I prime the engine, there's actually a little bit of time in between when I did the prime and right now. Because when I was done, I saw a trickle of oil all the way down and underneath the pan. And I was just frustrated. I just knew it was a rear main seal leak. Maybe I shouldn't have trimmed that little piece of rubber ridge off of it. It would have been a little bit tighter. I wouldn't be in this situation. I was angry because I had 7 full quarts in the pan I was going to have to drain out. Take the pan off, take the oil pump off, take the rear main off, put in a new seal, reseal it. I was just frustrated. So like an angry child, I kicked some rocks in the dirt, and then I put the engine away, and I just went in the house. I was angry. So a couple days later, once I calmed down, came back out, and I cleaned everything off with brake clean, and I ran the prime again, and I just sat there and I slowly counted to 60. I wanted a good full minute of the pump running. It was longer than I'd run it before. And I came down and looked, and there was one drop right at the bottom. So I looked real close, and I'm like, oh, it's not coming from the rear main at all. It's coming from the back of that oil pan seal. And that is when I noticed, this is some of the issue with aftermarket stuff when you get it. So I noticed that the amount of gap in between the pan and the seal, when it got right here to the bottom, it looked like it was just, the gap was too wide. So what I did was used a rubber mallet, a little bit of persuasion, and what I did was I went around and I just tapped real lightly, and I closed that gap up. So I think what was happening was there was some either backsplash or something from the pump running, and it was just washing up and coming out that seal. And there was a gap in the pan and the seal. It wasn't just wasn't squishing the seal tight enough to get a good seal. So once I did that, and I was confident that I'd close that gap up, washed everything down with brake clean, blew dry everything out, and then I ran it again for a full minute, and it's bone dry. So I told my buddy that I was going to have to tear it apart and put a rear main seal in it. I ordered another seal, so that's coming in the mail, so I'll just have an extra one. But yeah, it turned out to be for naught, and everything looks good. All right, that's one more thing down. Very, very close to putting it in the car. Now is the time to subscribe as well. You don't want to miss out, because once the engine and the drivetrain gets in, I think I'm going to body work, which is going to be interesting because I've never done that before. So the only skill I have is from watching YouTube videos. So that ought to be interesting. But anyway, I'm going to do it. I just hope I don't waste a bunch of money and then end up going to a body shop anyway. I hope not. We're going to find out. Anyway, like I said, good time to subscribe. Okay, so what is left to do? I got to pull the accessories back off the front. I can't fit the flex plate on with this engine stand, so it's going to have to come off of the engine stand so I can put the flex plate on, because I want to bolt the starter motor up and then check my clearances on the starter gear to flex plate. Just make sure all that's right and shimmed out. I'd rather do it on the stand out here. Well, not on the stand because it won't fit, but I'd rather do it out here than on my back in the car. So, and then once that's done, torque converter goes on, transmission gets bolted up, it goes on to the hoist, zip, swing into the car, bolt it up, and then I order a drive shaft once I measure it out. And once that's done, then I got to move on. I at least got to paint the jambs out all the way around to be able to get all that painted and then put the dash back in. And if I put the dash back in, then all I got to do is build my wiring harness and I can literally start this thing up, which is very tempting. But I'm going to try to be a good boy. I want to get on the body work, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm thankful that you're here. I'm glad you're following along for those who are. And if you've reached out to me and asked a question and I've gotten an answer back to you and you're not subscribed, it's a good time to help your boy out. So anyway, that is all I got for now. Boy, this is going to be a sad video at the end, I thought, because I was going to have to say that I needed to tear it back apart to replace the rear main seal. And now I don't. Now that doesn't mean when it goes in the car and I have it running and take it on a test drive and come back and drive it around and come back that it's not going to leak. This is 1970s technology. It's a two-piece oil pan gasket with rear seals. The nice one-piece gasket you see on LSs and all that stuff really makes it easy for it not to leak. But it's an old car. It's supposed to leak, right? Anyway, that's all I got. So this is Hutch from Hutch High Perf. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a pleasant day. Take it easy.